The Long Way Home, Chapter 16, Methods and Madness. First thing was first. Vincent had to make sure the rest of the kids were okay. They were. They were frightened, worried, nearly distraught, but okay, physically speaking. The plan's failure had them all pretty upset, and Vincent guessed he'd have to deal with that somehow. Tondre seemed the best off, like she'd just expected Vincent and her cousin to be victorious as a matter of course. Vi was nearly in tears, and Vincent was pretty sure that if she hadn't been too afraid to make a sound while he and George Boy fought, she would have been sobbing already. Cadet tried to hide his guilty anger, but that was something that he and the George kid would have to work out. Next thing was next, cutting those damned parasites off every poor soul on the unscrewed ship and giving the dead a respectful spacer's grave. He'd have preferred to do it in the hyperspace sea, but needs must bend tradition for time. The George kid helped with the grim duty. They didn't talk, not while they laid the dead to rest. He had a thing or two to say to Jason George, but that unpleasant conversation could wait. Vincent didn't know whether any of the poor souls were Catholics, but he said a benediction for them anyway. All of this was complicated by the latest addition to his little cadre of children, apprentice lady Isis Magdalene, who set the George kid on edge. A part of him took a private glee in the overly formal boy getting a taste of his own medicine, but the better part of him recalled the weight of the George name pressing down on Jason and an equally private pity. That would have been bad enough, except the odd girl's manners unsettled the other three children, in particular her way of address. She called Tondre Wayfinder, Vi Hearthmaker, and Cadet Namemaker, all on sight, and none of the recipients particularly liked being called that way. For his part, Vincent didn't much mind Path Seeker. Once the dead had been laid to rest, the grubs had been disposed of, and whatever those things with the eyes had been tossed out, then Vincent and Jason returned to the Long Way to get clean, get rested, and maybe get fed. That's when Tondre took a look at the George boy, shifted her gaze to Vincent, and bluntly asked, "Did you figure it out yet?" "Aye, he did," the George boy sighed, "and that would have been the hint if he hadn't. We agreed no hints." "We did," aye, the girl mused, "but he was taking so long I got worried." Jason trudged up to the boarding ramp and gave one of her hands a squeeze on his way by. "I think Uncle Vincent's a canny fellow. We just had things to deal with." "Did he say the words?" Tondre asked Vincent as he followed the boy up the ramp. "What words?" Vincent asked, and was surprised at the exhaustion in his own voice. "Of course I did," the boy rejoined. "The welcome bit." "Oh, good. Welcome home, Uncle Vincent. We didn't know we missed you until we met you. I hope you don't mind hearing it again." "The Path Seeker has long sought such track," Isis Magdalene intoned suddenly. "One need only look at his face to see—" That's thanks, little miss," Vincent stammered, more than a little jarred by the girl's abrupt interruption. "Why, Isis Magdalene only has the one dress she's wearing, so why don't you take her to see if you can find anything aboard she could use?" "Okay, Mr. Vincent," Vi chimed before she scampered up to the newest edition and said, "I like that dress. It's very pretty, but he's right, you'll need something tougher and something more comfy since—" as she then led the girl off into the depths of the enemy vessel. While those two were leaving, Vincent rounded on Cadet and said, "You should go along with Tondre and see if you can help her getting this heap to talk to the Long Way. The grubs have taken Featherwielders for the most part, so everything inside is huge even compared with the Star Stater ship." Okay," he mumbled as Tondre gathered him up by the eye, and they started going through the hangar bay in search of supplies. "I notice you don't have me doing something," the George boy said. "You," Vincent said with an effort to keep his voice even, "get a shower and wait in the galley. Once we're both clean, we have things to talk over." "Aye, I figured," the boy said, and Vincent caught the tension in his words. One shower later, and Jason waited in the galley. He thought about getting something to eat, but decided against it when his stomach roiled at the thought. Instead, he listened to the Long Way and her systems. It seemed to him that her sorrow had subsided somewhat in the favor of hope, fragile and pale as it was. It seemed to him that she would always carry some grief. It seemed to him that her time with Vincent and his vengeance would color her forever. He figured that wasn't a bad thing. Not at all. At length, Vincent returned from his own shower, and changing into his casual clothes, Jason swallowed his nose as the old man regarded him with an implacable gaze. He softly said, soft like a blade on a whetstone. Jason did so, and did his best to meet the older man's eyes as he listened. "I'm not good at this stuff, so bear with me. What were you thinking?" The LEDs simulating oil lamps flickered, and Jason drummed his fingers on the table before he answered. I was thinking that they were going to find Cadet. And so? Jason's eyes fell to the table, and he mumbled. And so I had to do something. You had to? Aye, Jason said, as he gathered his courage, or thought he did. I wasn't going to let them take him. Did you think I was going to let any of you get taken? Jason looked away from Vincent. He didn't like the hurt behind the old man's eyes. No, Jason muttered. Not that. Never that. The long way hummed. Vincent looked at Jason for a long while, and Jason got the impression that he was searching for words until he said, It was brave. But you were, it was, Jason. I could have handled it, even though it didn't go to plan. I could have handled it without you putting yourself at risk. The other kids need you. You give them courage. You keep them, kid. You could have been killed. There was a lump in Jason's throat for some reason, and he choked up. I'm sorry. Chief, look, bear with me here. It's not that it's wrong exactly, Vincent sighed, and Jason wiped his eyes. And you have a lot to be proud of. You stood up for your ship and crew. You fought like a Terran. But the simple truth is, I'm the adult here, and it's supposed to be my job to protect you, not the other way around. God knows you're strong, and the devil knows you're ahead of your years, too. But that doesn't mean that you don't still get to be a kid. Nobody's giving you your city nickname yet. The lump in Jason's throat was bigger for some reason. Thanks, he managed. Vincent's shadow vanished from the table where Jason was looking, and Jason felt the warmth of the old man's heavy hand gripping his shoulder. He looked up to see care, pride, and even pain jumbled all together on the man's face, and he said, I'm not angry. Please believe that. Aye, Jason said. I believe you. Don't worry about that. It's just, I'm a fighter. I've always known that. And when I heard them going back to where... I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it like I don't trust you. Not every fight is yours, Vincent said as he slid into the dinette beside Jason and drew him into a one-sided hug. Sometimes it's okay to trust someone else. Aye, Jason sighed as he leaned into the embrace. One other thing, Vincent said. You're going to have another hard talk with the cadet. He's mad at you. And himself. Wonderful, Jason moaned. That could wait for a while. Jason was too tired to even try to put himself in Cadet's shoes. No, not shoes. Cadet didn't wear shoes. In Cadet's place. Jason was too tired to do anything but let sleep-creeping fingers drag his eyelids down. Vincent felt the kid's weight settle onto him, and his breathing became slow and steady. Just when he was thinking that the George boy was asleep, he mumbled, Vincent, you don't think I'm bent in the rudder, do you? The old man decided that the boy was close enough to sleep to pick him up and say, I don't know what that means. You know, he struggled to say thickly, loopy, loony, cracked, bonkers. Nah, Vincent said as he took the lumbering steps towards the bedroom. At least you're not any more crazy than an R&I drop trooper, one of the lost boys. That got the kid to smile as Vincent laid him on his own bed to let him get some rest. He cast his eyes to the top of his dresser where his rosary was laid. The halting knife marks of Cull's original carving had long since worn away on the crucifix. But Vincent's fingers remembered the feel of them as he began to pray the rosary and vigil over the boy. He decided the kid had courage to spare, so he prayed for peace in his rest. Jason awoke some hours later to find that he'd been moved to Vincent's cabin after he'd fallen asleep. He rolled his eyes at the unnecessary gesture from Vincent, wherever he was. He figured he would have been fine on the couch or even under the net seat to catch a little sleep. Maybe he was trying to convince himself that he was annoyed about the gesture to distract himself from the work ahead. It didn't work. Jason sighed and got out of bed as he shook the last of sleep from his eyes and stepped out into the galley. There he found Vi and Isis Magdalene, the former bustling around to prepare dinner, and the latter sat in prim silence on the couch. Jason decided it was a good thing that he'd been moved after all. Need a hand? He asked Vi. No thanks, she said with buoyant cheer. It looked to Jason like Isis Magdalene was going to proclaim something, so he said, My name is Jason. I know you probably saw us coming, and the things your people can see sometimes get all symbolic. But it's Jason, okay? I'm only me. As thou sayest, Isis Magdalene agreed with a graceful bow to her head. And cool it with all the bowing and such, Jason said with a dismissive wave of his hand. It'll get in the way of getting to know each other. It seemed to Jason like she was going to bow to him again, but restrained herself before saying demurely, As thou sayest, shall we have a beginning now? Thy kindred are as known to me, for they doth cast a great shadow across my people's fate. The the warrior in the shadows, the god-slayer, the clenched fist, and the father of 5 who became 3. Yet now stands before me the blood, and sayest to me that he is only. Why is this? That would take a long while to explain, Jason told us seriously. So, for now, I hope that you can accept that their deeds are not mine to claim. More importantly, we need to figure out where you're going to sleep. Told you, Vi chimed as she brought Jason some reheated game chops and almost potatoes. He's a very sweet person. Slanderous lies, Jason teased as he accepted the food and ruffled the hair between Vi's round ears playfully. Don't listen to her. I'm sour as a lemon. I know not what a lemon is. Forget about it, Jason said, though a mouthful of savory meat. We don't have any more berths. Frankly, Cadet and I don't exactly have them. But the sofa and the table fold down. It's proper for girls to have the cabin. So that's why Tran and Vi have the cabin. And you're a girl too, so I figure you ought to be in the cabin too. Only problem is, I don't think it's proper to make you sleep on the floor. The exarch girl's scarlet skin shade deepened somewhat as she mumbled, We thought not of this trouble. I offer my apology. No, it's not your fault. So you don't get to apologize for this. I'm just happy that, well, we can talk about that later. If we talk about it at all, Jason said seriously. We could go on another expedition, Vi offered brightly. Maybe we could find something to use as a futon. A futon will do nicely. For my dormitory was an Anamu style of thy people. Japanese is the name of the culture, Jason corrected absently. Anamu is slang for a specific kind of art from that culture. Oh, I offer my thanks, Isis Magdalene seriously intoned. Don't worry about it, Jason said through a mouthful of tubers. Why, is Cadet handy? He and Tran went to the bridge with Mr. Vincent, she answered. Why? Gotta go apologize to him. I think he's mad at me, but, I began before she caught Jason's melancholy glance. I do owe it to him, and you. Sorry for worrying you like that. I'll try to be smarter about picking fights. Vi snapped the deck with a thick rubber tail nervously and said, It's okay. Is it? No, maybe not. But I forgive you anyway, Jason. I know you were only trying to help like you always. Vi haltingly said, Thanks, Vi. You're a gem. There was a wrongness about the enemy ship. Not merely the fact that it was made for much larger creatures who didn't have fingers. Something else. Something deeper. Vincent was starting to think that the Starsailors would write about the lives of ships. The sooner they got what they were here for and left, the better, so far as Vincent was concerned. Tandre seemed to agree with him, even though she was usually quiet. Her silence was now the silence of somebody focusing on a task to get it done as quickly as possible. Need anything? He asked her as she started prodding and examining the bridge equipment in search of an admin data port. No, thank you, she began before she had amended. You could string out that data cable if it's not long enough. You'll have to help Cadet get another one. Vincent was eager to help her along, eager to shorten their stay, if only by minutes. Cadet, he said, help keep this from getting tangled. Cadet nodded and clicked his beak, but waited until they'd gotten out of earshot before he said, It doesn't look like we need any help. You want to talk about it? About what? Vincent regarded the boy levelly. The boy regarded him back with undisguised suspicion. You're mad at Jason. You're mad at him because him protecting you was arbitrary, and it made you afraid in a way you haven't ever had to feel. You're mad at yourself, too. You're mad because you think if only you had kept quiet, it wouldn't have happened in the first place. And you're mad at Jason is right that you wouldn't be able to fight like him. Cadet peered at Vincent through one narrowed eye before he said, How could you tell all of that? Age has its advantages, the old man grumbled. But then again, you're nowhere near as subtle as you think you are. Oh, the kid focused on Vincent's hand, stretching out another loop of cable. You should talk to him about that. The avian boy blinked at Vincent in surprise before asking, And not to you? You can if you want. I'll listen, and I'll do my best to talk you through it. But I'm not good at that kind of thing, so you'll have to be patient with me, Vincent explained as he took another backward stride. But I guess this is between you and him, and you'll need to work it out. Why are you bothering? Vincent strung out a couple more loops before answering. Kids are always good at asking hard questions. Because you're not like me, and that's not a good thing. But you're a badass pirate hunter, that's awesome. No, Vincent sighed ruefully. I'm a broken-down old man chasing a phantom hope and running from the pain of happy memories. You don't want to wind up alone like me. But you aren't alone, Cadet observed slowly. I guess I'm not alone anymore. But that's because you kids wouldn't let me be. You guys cared, and so I had to make friends again. But that didn't just happen. Jason and Vi and Tran and you made it happen. And if you don't work out problems with your friends, You can lose friendship. You should talk to him about it. But if he just thinks I'm a coward, Cadet finally admitted. I'll bet you the long way against half a chit that he doesn't. The very bones of the ship called out in mute horror at this offering contained between her bulkheads. She was a ship in torment. Jason tried to ignore her silent pleas for release as he retraced the path to the alien bridge. Fortunately for his purpose, he met Vincent and Cadet as they worked to string a long data cable along the corridor leading towards the hangar, where the Longway waited in patient anticipation. Before thinking, he asked, You guys need any help? Nah, Vincent answered easily. I think I have this. Why don't you two talk about video games or whatever kids talk about these days? Jason rolled his eyes, both at Vincent's proffered subject and his clumsy offer of privacy. Aye, he said politely. If you've got it, you've got it. Jason waited for Vincent to get a few steps away before he launched into it. I figure I owe you an apology. When I made my choice, I was only thinking about the danger to myself, and I didn't really think about how you'd feel worrying about me. Cadet clicked his beak, and then regarded Jason with one eye, then the other, as Vincent kept stringing out the cable. You just don't get it, Cadet muttered darkly. Jason cast his gaze up and down the corridor, found a nearby box and crate of some kind, and took a seat. All right, explain it to me. I'll listen. Fucking hell. Cadet sighed and folded in on himself under the wings as he settled on his haunches across from Jason. Jason bit back a correction from the cussing, and Cadet began. It's not fair of you. Jason didn't know exactly what was unfair of him, so he waited for Cadet to elaborate. It took him some time to find the words. It's not fair for you to make me feel like I belong, like you can. Just put it all at risk like that. That was something unexpected. Jason decided another question might help. Do you think that you would stop belonging if I got hurt? Killed! If you got killed! Stowaway retorted coldly as Jason suppressed a flinch. And I didn't see anybody else making me belong like you did. Now, that's not fair to Tran and Vi. Vi took care of you just as much as everybody else, and Tran just isn't good at talking to people, Jason said before he caught Cadet's angry glance. You made me join in. You didn't care that I was rude to you. You wanted to be friends anyway. Nobody else was like that. I did. But now you're friends with Uncle Vincent, and with Tran and Vi, aren't you? And what makes you think that any of us would be okay if you got killed? Jason looked at Cadet steadily and told him, They were coming for you. I couldn't let them touch you. Yeah. Well, maybe you should. Jason leapt to his feet and pointed an accusing finger at Cadet, nearly shouting, Don't you ever say that. Don't you ever even think that it would have been better if they'd killed you. I don't know what I'll do if you do again, but you ever stop to think maybe I felt that way about you? Maybe I wished I was brave enough to be the one fighting with Vincent. Cadet fairly shouted, with angry, unshed tears glistening in his dark eyes. Jason took a deep breath and found his center. Well, it took him several deep breaths to find his center, but he did it. Cadet, not everyone is made to do everything. It's okay if you're not a fighter. Not everyone needs to be, but fighters is what we needed. Aye, that's what we needed. That's what we needed then. But we'll need a better co-pilot than me for what's coming. And you're a natural. I've seen your scores in The Sims, and I'm a little jealous at how fast you're learning. Had a lot of good that did, please, Jason said as he put his back on the wall beside Cadet and let himself slide to the deck. You do something that scares the spit out of me, even in Sims. I have to focus to keep my hands from shaking and jostling the yoke, but you're the kind of person who can put the fear of piloting aside and make a ship dance. I know it. For me, fighting is like that. All the fear falls away when there's an enemy I can come up to grips with, and I can just fight. I've always been like that, as far back as I can remember. You really think I'm a natural? Cadet croaked. Aye, big time. Now, you still have to work hard. Natural talent will only get you so far. That's what my mum says. You think I'll ever meet your mum and dad? Good. Good. You're slower than Uncle Vincent. Huh? You'll figure it out. You're canny enough. Cadet narrowed his eyes at Jason with maybe not suspicion exactly. Maybe curiosity or something like that. Jason hid a smile by standing up. End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.